Good afternoon, my name is Tarik. Thank you for being here today, everyone. As you know, for the past few weeks, we've been working on a statistical analysis for our client. Today, we'll be having a conference meeting to communicate the aims of our report to the client and offer a roadmap of the tests that we will use to achieve our aims for this report. Our team is Kieran, Nathan, Henry, and our client representative today is Stine. Stine, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome.
As you're already aware, my company is looking to open new branches both in Asia and in non-Asian countries.
Yes.
So we're wondering what type of customer service representatives we need to hire for this. We're wondering what type of relationship there is between the race of customer and the CSR,
Yeah.
and if customers prefer CSRs from the same racial background. Also, which variables are the biggest impact on overall customer behavior, satisfaction, and therefore what ones we have to prioritize when hiring CSRs.
Sure, of course. We actually had a look at your management issues and we've developed clear guidelines and aims to address these issues for you. Through our investigations, my team and I aim to identify new trends within the dataset that we've created, which was pulled from a survey that we conducted. We want to explore whether satisfaction levels are influenced by the race of the sales representative and perceptions of that same sales representative. And we also want to study the relationship between workplace behavior and race. So this is particularly important because prior secondary research has proven that Asian and non-Asian workers actually do exhibit different workplace practices, beliefs and attitudes. And so we will later use independent t-tests to uncover these variances, but my colleagues will discuss that for you later on. We've also sent you across our data summary. Did you have a chance to look at it?
Oh yeah, thank you so much. I was satisfied with the sample of 1,823 respondents,
Sure.
which is definitely a sufficient number to run reliable tests.
We also filtered the respondents that did not take the survey seriously. You're aware of that?
Yes, and thank you. Interestingly enough though, I noticed that 84% of the respondents were in the 18 to 25 age bracket, and also the majority of respondents were in the year 12 or equivalent bracket, which emphasizes a rather young sample. Would this skew the results later on?
Possibly, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah. The male constituent is 44%, female 55%, so it's fairly similar.
Yes.
And 37% Asian, 62% non-Asian, which is also fairly alright for us for this moment. The most common family size were 4 family members by 41% and 5 members by 23% as well.
Sure.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Sure. Stine, we also found that a frequency analysis was helpful in providing a rough summary of the trends of the respondents. Our analysis showed a positively skewed curve for the hierarchies question with a 94.4 cumulative percentage of frequency that actually disagreed with the question. And there's also a positive kurtosis of 1.387, which indicates that most respondents actually disagreed with this question and a disagree value. With regards to the question that men work differently to women, the kurtosis was much lower at 0.420, supporting the 70.1% that disagreed to this statement. But the majority of applicants actually were agreeable to this variable. Yes. In terms of the responses on rules and regulations, groups versus individuals, and hard work is the key to success, we found that most applicants actually agreed to these statements. But based on the mean analysis of those 3 variables, there was 5.817 mean, 4.726, and 5.341 respectively, which indicates that respondents found rules and regulations to be the most important workplace variable out of the survey.
Thanks, Tarik. That's important data.
You're welcome, Stine. To make more sense of the information, we also conducted manual cleaning up of the data just to make it easier to understand and easier to process when we make these statistical and tests. The first thing that we did was we recoded scale responses from 2 decimals to whole number intervals just to make things a little bit more easy to understand. We also did something that was very important to our analysis. We removed all respondents who did not answer to strongly disagree in the attention variable, and that just filtered out everybody that wasn't interested or wasn't attentive to our survey, and just qualified our results. The third thing that we did was we recoded the number of people in family so that greater than 6 and 7 merged into one bin or one category group. And we also removed surveys containing errors due to no response on country of origin, or region, just because that didn't provide us with any substantial information and it was a bit irrelevant. And another very important recoding that we did to our analysis was we recoded the country of origin to 2 separate groups, Asian and non-Asian, because essentially that's what you are after from us. You just want to know which CSRs are most important or are best fit to the country that you're operating or the region that you're operating in. Are you happy with that?
Very happy. Thank you very much, Tarik.
From this cleaned up data, we proposed to run some statistical tests to analyze the data, and I will get my colleagues here to discuss that in more detail for you, Stine.
Right.
Thanks, Tarik. So, Stine, one of the questions of this report concerns what kind of employees, primarily customer service reps, would be most appropriate to hire in the different regions of your expansion. So this must include consideration of our condition variable, i.e. whether the respondent heard of any of the 4 combinations of Asian or non-Asian service reps and Asian or non-Asian customers. So each of these scenarios is only one example of the type of interaction these people could have, which could be a skewed or inaccurate example, but it is what we have to work with and likely reflects many interactions of similar conditions. So one of the first tests we performed was the one-way and over test to help answer the question, do customers generally prefer a CSR from the same cultural background? The purpose of this question is to discover whether any relationship actually exists between the race of the customer and the race of the CSR in these specific examples of interactions, or, in other words, whether the overall satisfactions differ by a factor variable. Our scale variable is the overall satisfaction with the CSR service, while our ordinal variables are for the 4 racial combinations just mentioned. So our null hypothesis for this test is that the overall satisfaction with the CSR service did not differ by the races of the CSR and the customer, which is our condition variable. And our alternate hypothesis is that the overall satisfaction with the CSR service did differ by the races of the CSR and the customer, again our condition variable. So to answer this, we initially looked at the significance of the ANOVA, or we will look at the significance of the ANOVA F value. And if it is significant, check the significance of Levine's test to determine whether we assume equal variances or not. We then look at the Tukey output if equal variances are assumed, or Tam-Haines if equal variances are not assumed. And from here we find out which condition variables are significantly different and which are homogeneous in terms of producing a rating of overall satisfaction with the service interaction. So after this test, we can then look at some of the more specific variables that influence overall satisfaction, and also look at how people from different parts of the world, namely Asia and otherwise, as Tarik said, perceive these interactions and other factors that may influence employee selection on your part. So we can do these tests such as independent T-sample test and linear regression, which my colleagues will now discuss. So I'll hand it over to Henry.
Okay, so in the next issue, we want to know whether the workplace behaviour is important and whether mean value difference differs between Asian and non-Asian races. So to answer this, an independent sample t-test is used between subject research to show whether the mean values of each of the 14 workplace behaviours are different between Asian and non-Asian races. So some of the 14 workplace behaviours we examine will include whether the SR seems rude, they gave personalised service, or seem to have a personal touch. So the null hypothesis would be that the specific workplace behaviour is equally important for Asians and non-Asians, whilst the alternate hypothesis would be the workplace behaviour being valued differently between Asian and non-Asians. So the groups must be independent, so which means that the participants that appear in one and only one group, and that the groups are not related or overlap with each other. So in this test, this simply means that the participants in the Asian group will never be included in the non-Asians. So we must also assume homogeneity of variance, which is when the variances in the population of these two groups are different, and where the sample variances need to be equally important. So we'll use the Levine's test for equality of variances to test the null hypothesis that the variances are equal. So if the probability for this is significant, where the p-value is less than or equal to 0.05, the null hypothesis, which is, for example, the SI gave a personalized human touch, are equally important for Asians and non-Asians is rejected. And the alternative hypothesis is accepted, where giving a personalized touch is valued between Asians and non-Asians. So for the next issue, I'll pass it on to Nick.
A second key aim of our project will be to identify what variables specific to the customer service representative have the largest influence on overall satisfaction. We've decided to run this test as our client will want to know what specific elements to look for in an agent when hiring to ensure they maximise their satisfaction levels. By providing callers with people best suited to their preferences, you should see improved business outcomes. After identifying whether different race combinations of CSR and customer provide different satisfaction outcomes, we will then use regression testing to form an equation of best fit. This will provide us with coefficient beta values that will help us identify whether variables have a positive or negative influence on overall satisfaction. This method was chosen over correlation to help give a best fit line that clearly quantifies the strength and direction of these relationships. The questions to be included in the analysis related to the perception of the CSR from 6 to 12 will be included as independent variables to be measured against our dependent variable overall satisfaction. As 6 to 12 are in scale form, our method of testing will remain viable. The questions to be included in the analysis related to the perception of the CSR, so from 6 to 12, that will be included as independent variables to be measured against our dependent variable overall satisfaction. As 6 to 12 are all in scale form, our method of testing should remain viable, and in conjunction we'll utilise stepwise regression to provide output that we can measure against the 3% rule. Further, we will look to ensure that enough significant variables are included in the regression so that our R-squared value that is returned provides enough explanation for variance in satisfaction due to changes in our independent variables. By running this test, we will aim to show which variables are most important in providing exceptional customer service. Once we identify these variables, we'll be able to compare these against race combinations to identify which CSR race will provide the highest rating on the most influential values. This will not only help overall satisfaction for yourselves, but will also mean that you can segment your customer service reps to deal with specific caller types in an attempt to maximise satisfaction, as our findings would suggest.
Well, so thank you for this reassuring information. However, I do feel that there are some limitations to what you guys have been talking about. Firstly, most of the respondents are fairly young, aged 18 to 25, and this might be a problem because it might be slightly biased and not represent the real target market that we're looking for. And this, I reckon, was caused by the distribution of surveys mostly to university or high school students. So I reckon it would benefit you to do a more balanced sample.
Secondly, I'm a bit concerned about the response rate, as it's 648%, which is 24.6% of the sample didn't respond and were filtered out. This might lead to some limitations in the accuracy of the results. Also, possibly the length of the survey was a bit off. It was fairly long, and this might have led to a loss in interest towards the end and a lack of focus and attention towards the end of the questions. This might be also due to lack of incentive of answering the survey accurately. Yeah.
Well, thank you for outlining these limitations, Stine. We'll definitely take these on board when we present our findings to you in our final report in the coming weeks.